The kids call it spilling the tea. When there's a problem, stop talking about it and start talking to them.
Welcome to It Doesn't Take a Genius.
Ramsey!
Marshall, that's not at all what I thought you were going to say. So that's phenomenal. I had different notes for this episode in front of me, but yeah, sure. We're talking about tea spilling. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. People are so excited to spill the tea.
They are.
So, welcome back to the great It Doesn't Take a Genius. You have to turn into the last episode to get that one. All right, so what are we talking about here?
Yeah, so I love this topic, and we've actually done an episode on triangles in particular, talking about coaching with backbone and heart from that book. And this is from our mentor, friend, colleague, Pamela Cole. Do you mind if I share?
She is a genius.
She is a genius. We've had her on as our very first guest episode. Was with her, and it was a lengthy episode talking about emotions. It was really, really good. Anyway, I'm going to read what you had written for the original opening because I think it spells this out so perfectly. You ever notice how problems don't spread because of the problem? They spread because of the conversation about the problem. So, there's this, this issue comes up, there's some dust up, some mistake, some problem, and you end up instead of addressing that problem, you end up with 5 opinions and a cancer, right? It's a culture cancer that's spreading.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Pamela has so many good ways of framing this.
Yeah.
And she calls it, like you were talking about, she calls it triangulation.
Right.
And so her definition is when a concern that belongs between 2 people or in a clear line of accountability gets routed through a third person or through the surrounding group instead. That's triangulation.
So don't go to the person for some reason. There are many reasons. Go around them, right? Talk to everybody except them.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. We've talked to everybody, but the person we have the problem with.
Yeah.
And then you can go all Dr. Phil. Well, how's that working out for you?
Right.
Well, nothing's getting solved. Huh.
Yeah. Well, and that's one problem, right? Like that's the cost is that we haven't yet addressed the issue, but there's a hidden cost here, right?
Oh yeah. The hidden cost is you've got the real issue, all right, whatever the problem's about. And now you've got what Pamela calls the shadow conversation.
Yeah.
And so some places call it the grapevine. Right. The informal communications network. Right? We try to dress it up. But yeah, it's just this shadow conversation about the thing, but not addressing the thing.
Yeah. And it's so easy to do this. Like we do it on accident sometimes because we're not even thinking about what we're about to cause. But I mean, that's a real problem in so many organizations that we don't actually have the conversation we need to have. We only have these political diplomatic side conversations.
Oh yeah. And Pamela's got a list of things, right? Like you said, this is terrible. People will go, oh, that's bad. But Pamela in her brilliance breaks it out to like, okay, so what makes it bad? And right. Some of the things on our list, right, she says it creates a second conversation around the first conversation. Right. And now the team and the managers must manage both the original issue and the shadow system that's growing around it. Like, I'm exhausted just thinking about this.
Yeah.
And another point she makes, people begin adjusting themselves around the rumor, assumptions, and half-truths, and silent alliances form. Well, if she did that, I'm with you. like we'll just not sit night by her at lunch, right? We won't
Yep.
invite her to the next board meeting,
Yep.
right? All based upon this shadow conversation.
Yeah, and I think that this is the part that makes it so nefarious that, I made a judgment call that I wasn't going to go directly to the person that I've got an issue with or there's a problem or what have you. I go to somebody else. Well, I've made that judgment call. That's now forced a series of people to make judgment calls, right?
Oh
And their
yeah,
judgment call might be he's a bad person, right? Or he's
yeah,
incompetent or whatever it is. And they're having to pick, right? Regardless, right? The we're going to talk about this a little bit, but it takes a strong man to say, I don't think I'd like to be a point in your triangle. I would like to go directly to the source, right?
yeah. Well, yeah, just to right, you almost put people in a no-win situation.
Yeah.
You come to me and you tell me this and expect my allegiance to you. So now I've either got to say, I don't believe you, right?
Yep.
Or I'd like to know more, which a person could perceive as, I don't believe
Yep.
your side of the story. And I'm choosing not to align myself with you. Oh, well,
Yep.
now we may have created another.
Oh, hey, listen, once you form one triangle, it very quickly becomes about five or six triangles. That's
Oh,
the issue. You keep spinning it off to the next person who's going to be getting involved.
dare we call it triangle maxing?
Wait, I think you're not supposed to do the like you have to say maxing only on the things you're trying to do.
Oh,
Anyway,
I'm new at this maxing thing, so really
well,
please
well,
forgive
let me
me.
say this. I do think that and we've got this in our notes, but this is a pay now or pay later kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
Pay now, go ahead and be direct, have the hard conversation, the uncomfortable, awkward conversation, or pay later because it will just over time fester.
Oh,
But
yeah.
man, it's short term, it's easier than being direct,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, as our friend author Captain Abrashoff says, problems are like milk; they don't get better
Yeah,
with age.
that's right.
So another issue that this brings about um, that I hadn't thought about before is the person being discussed
Mm-hmm.
starts to sense, all right, something's wrong.
Yep.
I walked by so and so and she gave me the side eye.
Yep.
I haven't even talked to her for a week or so. Like, I don't know
Yep.
um, and then you get who's ever hearing the story, maybe it's the manager, right? They get incomplete information.
Yep.
Or they only hear about it after everybody's dug in on their position.
Right.
Like, yeah, we know that happened and we're all mad about it. And it's like, well, can we go back to the beginning to find out if that really did happen or if that's
Yeah.
exactly all that was there?
Yeah.
And then, so then the ultimate kind of, you were talking about the long term thing is departments become less honest and a little more political, right? We've
Right.
got alliances and allegiances, and we're withholding information and strategically, undermining people.
Yeah.
Man,
And by the way, if you just keep it to yourself and don't triangulate and just hold it within and say, that employee doesn't do that very well, I'll just do it myself. I don't need to make a big deal about this. I'm not going to gossip about them. You still haven't won, right? Because now Will Guidara talks about this in Unreasonable Hospitality that, once you do that, you run the risk of letting bitterness set up for you long term. You start to resent that employee who, day one you could have said, hey, I notice your shirt's not wrinkled. Why don't you head upstairs and use the steamer and get yourself situated before shift one starts. But if you let it go a day because we need bodies and it'll be fine, and day 30 and you're still playing this game, he doesn't know it's an issue, and you do know it's an issue but haven't said anything. You're just getting instead very resentful.
hmm.
You're still in trouble. So that's why you have to actually address what we're talking about in dealing with the triangle. So you have a question in our show notes here that I really like this. I really like this.
The question you can ask yourself if you're in the midst of this: am I moving this toward resolution or just spreading it?
Such a
So,
good question.
so is the conversation I'm about to have just, is it going to, solve something? Is it going to make it better? Is it going to, find out, even more information? Or I'm just spreading it around, right? I'm just casting it out there, a wider net of
Yep.
potentially, and you don't even have to think of it as misinformation,
No.
but it is a one-sided perspective.
Yes.
So I'm gonna spread my one-sided perception to a larger audience.
And if you think of that, Pamela has so many great examples of this in her book that is coming out. But the one I really like is one that in many of the workplaces you and I have worked in is seen as a good thing, and that is venting. That's just the person I vent to. I'm really good for Tommy. When Tommy comes in, I let him vent to me, and that deals with the situation. No, it has not dealt with any situation. It has only let you repeatedly vent without taking a step toward resolution. It's right to the point of your question. So I think this is a huge deal that you need to give yourself a litmus test. Look yourself in the mirror and say, am I really moving this toward resolution or not by the action I'm taking right now?
Oh yeah. Well, it reminds me of Michael Bungay Steiner's book, The Coaching Habit, where he calls it coaching the ghost.
Yeah.
So you've got two people, and maybe one of them could do something, but they spend
Yep.
all their time talking about the other person instead of talking to the other person.
Yep.
And I ended up with a hologram or parallelogram instead of a triangle. I had three managers all talking about an employee and complaining about them, and they talked for a while, and I was the fourth person in the room. And finally, I said, "Hey, has anybody told them these things?" They all looked at each other like, "Well,
Huh?
no, we have none of us have done that." I said, "Well, I think this person actually reports to you." So, and it would have been different if they were strategizing an approach.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah.
not.
So,
That's moving toward a resolution.
yeah, that's hey, I've got to talk to this person. I need a couple of ways that I might approach that you think would make that conversation go the best,
Yep.
or as good as it can. And so strategizing, yeah, moving towards a resolution, but this was just an endless series of complaints about the person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, all right, they'll naturally move to, all right, so what's our next step here? What can we do? But I got the sense that they were never going to do that. Like just this endless rant.
Well, Pamela points this out that even if you're having that conversation where you're strategizing, if the conversation is mainly like sarcasm
Hmm.
and I'm just saying, this guy's got an issue. I'm just saying. If you're doing things like that, that's another clue that you're not really moving toward resolution. So yeah, strategize, but with the intent of having the conversation. If you're not doing that, that's a problem.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
should we talk about like how to do it? Some things that show you've got some good discipline on being direct.
Oh, I think we should, and I think it's going to be just so obvious. Like, yeah. Grab your pen and paper, both of you, and write this down. Right. So in Pamela's practical playbook, as she calls it, right. Item one: just address the issue early.
Yeah.
Right. Don't let it fester. Don't let it, and this is difficult. We haven't talked about this. This is difficult depending upon your disc style.
Yeah. Oh,
So
for
if
sure.
you're a D, an I, an S, or a C, right? If you're a D, address the issue early. Oh, already did that.
Yep.
took
Yep.
care of it as soon as it happened. Right? If you're an I, maybe, well, I've been laying awake at night thinking, about how I should approach the conversation, and then S may have put it off a little bit because they're wondering, how's this going to affect the rest of the team, and what's all going to be the ripples effect from that. Then the C has already, outlined the bullet points of what they're going to talk about with
Yep.
not as much thought about how it might land.
Right. Right.
So yeah, we want to address it early. For some people, it's their natural, that's where they live.
Yeah.
And for the other three-quarters of the population, it's going to take a little bit more work. You're going to have to be deliberate and make yourself say, all right, I gotta get after this.
Right. Right. And the C is probably going to be a little better about doing some fact checking before the conversation, doing some things to make sure we're squared away. S's might do that a little bit as well too. But yeah, so address those issues early. We also have in our notes, go to the person first, right? Like, there's a thought. Like, we don't need this to contaminate anybody else. The two of us can deal with it because we're the people that know about it. This shows up in the book of Matthew, in the Gospel of Matthew. There's a place where Jesus says, if you know somebody has something against you, go to that person. And there's another place where, he's like, if you have something against somebody, go to that person. Like, you're the guy. Like, if you're the one aware of it, then it's on you to go to that person. So this is, again, like you said, take notes, but this is pretty common sense. If you're the person aware of it, it's time for you to go to that person first.
Oh yeah, oh definitely. The other thing she talks about is use managers for the escalation.
Yeah.
And if you remember in her definition, she says, when a concern belongs to two people or in a clear line of accountability.
Right.
So, and we ran into this not too long ago in a situation where a manager had a problem with a team member that didn't report to them, but reported to a different manager.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, what's our cultural norm here? As a manager that's not my employee, do I have, can I approach them directly, or would you like me to go to their manager and say, hey, this is what we believe is going on. You might want to look into this.
Right. Right. Pamela also talks about staying behavioral. And this is a big one. We've talked about this many times. I know I've used the example of the manager who was called lazy. And I said, behaviorally, what made you think that employee was lazy? And they said, well, not at their desk at 9 a.m. and walking the lot on their cell phone. And there could have been very good reasons for either of those things to happen. Either way, one surefire way to not address the issue is to say to that employee, we think you're lazy. That doesn't work, right? The value judgment of that doesn't work. But if you stay behavioral, like, hey, we noticed you're not at your desk at 9. We've seen you walking the lot on the cell phone. There's probably a story here, but that's what we want to address are those behavioral issues. In other words, it's not you. We're not, we're not devaluing you. We're concerned about these behaviors that we're noticing. And that's a lot easier to talk about than somebody's worth when you start throwing around subjective terms. So,
well, as the kids, say, he's not a bad person. He just made a bad choice.
nice.
And so, yeah, let's address the choice and not the person's worth.
Right.
Yeah, Pamela also talks about shutting down the gossip.
Yeah.
That's hard because it's
this is
juicy.
difficult.
It's juicy.
Yeah.
The tea is flowing.
Yep.
Oh man, but yeah, at some point you have to say, listen, and you can be polite. I don't have time. I've got a lot to do. I've got to get back to work. It'd be interesting to see how all that plays out. I got to go.
Right.
Just
Right.
yeah, excuse yourself out of those conversations, and most of the time who these people are in your organization. And I know people that are just like, yeah, I try to avoid that person. I just, I do what I have to do with them, but I know that there's a good chance if I'm around them for very long, they're going to start sharing some gossip. And I don't want to be a part of that.
And that's a really cool cultural norm to set. If you can get that going in your workplace where that kind of stuff is avoided instead of attractive to people, you're well on your way to winning on this one. And then move toward resolution. So, we're not having the conversation to have this cathartic experience where we all get it out in the open. I mean, that's good. Like, I want you to get it out in the open and name what's going on. If you name it, you can tame it, as one of my clients says. But the point is to tame it, right? Like, so we're not having this conversation just to sort of vomit on each other and feel better about saying what's been on our mind, but we're trying to figure out a resolution. And it's a good idea to come into these conversations with some options of what that would be. Here are some different ways we could handle this. You're not going to start the conversation that way, but you could have that in your back pocket.
Oh, definitely. And you made a good point about maybe part of that resolution would be just going and gathering more information.
Yeah.
I'm going to go pull up the records from that, or listen to that phone call if it was recorded. I'm going to go ask some people who were there, right?
Yep.
What did they see? What was their perception? And so, yeah, moving towards resolution may not be, all right, I'm going to go at this first. It may be, we talk about intervention without diagnosis is malpractice.
Yes.
So before I intervene, right, on this limited scope of information, I'm going to gather as much information as I can and then have that intervention.
Yeah. Super, super well said.
Well, and the last one, kind of like we talked about, protecting cross-department respect.
Yeah.
And and as managers having a conversation and say, all right, what's our culture here?
Yeah.
I was very fortunate. My daughter was raised here in the neighborhood I live in. It's very Mayberry-esque. Mm-hmm. And very early on, we figured out that all the parents, that all the kids played with in different houses and yards, all had very similar parenting styles. Mm. And so, yeah, we gave each other permission. If my kid's at your house, you got my permission to make them behave in a way that you ask your kids to, and I will do the same here. And so we all had permission to, they didn't have to call me and say, hey, your kid's over here doing something bad. Can I say no?
Right.
No, our values were aligned enough that we gave each other permission to do that. That could be a conversation you have at work, and you may decide, all right, that doesn't work here. If you have a problem with one of my team members, come to me, and then I will address it. That's fine, too.
Love it. Well, so, yeah, this week we want to encourage you to not go sideways, go direct, right? And I don't think we can pull off. I know it's in the notes. Do you want to try to say the line together?
We've never tried that.
Okay. Well, I've got a way that we can get to it anyway.
Okay. All right.
C.S. Lewis quote. What we were going to say is, it doesn't take a genius, but it does take courage. And we were going to say it at the same time. But frankly, no. But instead,
glad you bailed on that.
I completely bailed on that. But I've got a great C.S. Lewis quote. I made it a bookmark a few years ago for my clients at Christmas time. He says, "Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point." Mm-hmm. It takes courage to have any virtue, because it's at that testing point where you have to say, you know what, even though this is hard, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the hard thing. And these conversations and approaching these things directly, they are hard things, right? Whether because you're fearful, of how people will look at you, or because it's going to take so much more time and so much more work than if you would just, let some of these side conversations continue to happen. But it's a testing point. This is a chance for you to step up your game and have some courage, show some heart that you can deal with it. So glad Pamela brought this to our attention. It's just crazy good stuff. We'll link to a lot of her material in the show notes.
Oh, yeah. She's literally written books on this topic.
That's right.
And continues to do so. We're excited to link to her stuff. And she truly is a genius.
That's right.
And we're both better off having known her.
Yes, we are. Yes, we
Yeah. And speaking of geniuses, our always faithful announcer, working for free. We appreciate that part the most. Please take it away, Mr. Wolf.
So go ahead and tweet that, or share it any other way you want. As always, there are no rights reserved, no trademarks, no copyrights. Share it if you want to. And join us next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.
That's good enough.